Okay, we're at the Territory Wildlife Park today, and it's my pleasure to introduce the 2016 Charles Darwin Scholars at Charles Darwin University, Professors Peter and Rosemary Grant from Princeton University. Welcome, Peter and Rosemary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for inviting us to come here. This is very enjoyable.
The Grants have been studying Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands for more than 40 years, and we'll get to talking about the finches in a minute. But first, let me just start with a few questions about evolution generally. Part of the MOOC is called The Evolution of Evolution. In other words, how our ideas about evolution have changed over time from before Darwin to after Darwin. And over the 40 years, what sort of technical advances have been made?
Well, I think that you could pinpoint two major ones. Going back to 1973 when we started, the degree of understanding of molecular genetics was much poorer than it is now. There have been terrific developments in the technical assessment of genetic variation in natural populations. So that would be one. The second one is the development of computers and software for analyzing large sets of data. In the old days, and that's going back earlier than 1973, you'd make your measurements and you'd use desktop calculators in order to do the analysis, statistical or mathematical analysis of the data. Now with high-speed computers, one can do so much more rapidly than was possible in the old days. So in combination, these two technological advances have made a big difference. In combination, they've made a big difference to the way we do research nowadays. And that applies to everybody, not just us doing work on Galapagos finches.
And I can just add that this, particularly in the genetics field, this is really increasing almost as we speak, because there are new techniques, but also the ability, and quite cheaply now, to sequence whole genomes. And this has made an enormous difference, not just to our work, but also to many people's work. And this has actually changed the focus of a lot of people's work. They're now bringing together behavior, ecology, evolution, physiology, and looking at the underlying genetics, which is now possible.
With these technological advances, how do you think that's affected our understanding of evolution? Is it just filling in the gaps and we know more detail, or has it really fundamentally changed our understanding of evolution?
I would say not a fundamental change, because the foundations of our understanding of evolutionary biology were laid many years ago, 100 years ago. We knew about natural selection, sexual selection, random genetic drift. We knew the basic elements of genetic variation in terms of mutation and recombination. So what has happened recently is to not quite so much, I wouldn't say fill in the details, but provide a lot more information in breadth and depth to what we knew in basic principles beforehand.
And I'd also add, I think, that it changes the whole focus of people's research work. So now we're getting studies that are able to look at the genetic underpinning of for example, the behavior in ruffs, and also in herring, you're able to look at the genetic underpinning of why certain populations breed at certain times and not at other times. The stickleback work, and also work on butterflies, which has shown the genes underlying the mimicry in butterflies. So it's brought together, it's changed the focus and brought it away from model organisms in the lab, but out into the field. And I think this is extremely exciting.
Yeah.